Hey, beauties. Good evening to you. So, the Prime Minister was at some function speaking recently. I don't know if it is something in light of students, being in the audience. Could be that. I don't know what the function was about. I was watching it, but because of what was happening, I couldn't turn up the audio. And then, when the news came on, I think it was last evening or the evening before, I heard a little clipping of what he was saying that, people are sort of hoping for an election, and a quick election. And I'm not sure if he's talking about local election versus general election. And constitutionally, he has until, for the general election, he has until 2025 September. Yes, because he came into power again 2020 of September. And he was saying it's not on his mind right now because the Jamaican people are basically crying, they're bawling because of the different decadence that they're facing, generally financial. And I've often talked about there are 6 basic fears that human beings go through. One, the fear of poverty, the fear of ill health, meaning the fear of sickness, diseases, and so on, the fear of death, the fear of old age, the fear of loss of love of someone, meaning somebody stopped loving you, and so on. I think I called all 6. And fear of criticism. People don't like to be criticized, when it's not constructive, especially. And but one of the ones that the major one, the 2 most powerful, terrifying ones, the fear of poverty and the fear of death. Old age, in a sense, but more the fear of poverty and the fear of death. And with the fear of poverty of all 6, that seem to carry a little bit more heartache and pain and strain on the brain. It brings on a whole tumultuous stress that one cannot even comprehend. We cannot even begin to imagine. We cannot understand. We cannot fathom. And he was saying, the Prime Minister was saying that, the election is not on his mind. Again, I'm not sure if he's talking local elections or the general elections because, people are crying out. They're crying out financially. They're crying out socially. They're crying out educationally. They're crying out psychologically. They're crying out mentally. They're just crying out because things are tough. Things are tough. Things are tough. Things are just difficult. Jamaica is just in a difficult space. It is in a difficult time. And I feel so bad to be the bearer of such a bad news. One of the things that I believe in is to speak positive and to think positive. But I also have to balance that with reality, with reality, realism, and be able to connect with the people. Jesus was touched with our infirmities. He was a realist. He was a positive thinker. But he was somebody he kept it real. He understood the plights and the cries of the people. And he was such a just God, is a just God that, he brought hope to the people. And he was not a man only about prayers, but he was a man of potatoes. As, a pastor would say, don't be a person of just prayers, but potatoes mean you give back, you help. Literally, if a man is hungry and you have to give him food, don't say, I'm going to pray for you. You can say that, but ensure that he eats first. And then you say a prayer afterwards so that food can be in his store barns always, so that he doesn't become hungry tomorrow. But we live in a country where we're really self-centered. It is all about the 3 amigos, me, myself, and I. And he's saying that, that they're basically trying to ensure that the people of Jamaica are satisfied. I've suggested, many other Jamaicans have suggested ways to make the people satisfied. We know the basic ones about reforming schools, education, getting better teachers, paying the teachers properly, fixing the roads, making people being able to afford decent homes, buying a decent car, buying groceries, being able to, if they want to take vacation, sometimes they have the ability to do so. So in other words, you increase their earning power. One man came out recently telling the private sector organization not to increase things too high because it will affect inflation. And I said, even if that is the case, it would be at the bottom of the food chain, meaning it would not be a strong determining factor that would affect that inflation being high. There are other factors that would take precedence that would not be in the main one. really was disheartened by such a comment, because the reality is that people are paid poorly in Jamaica. Years ago, before Miles Monroe departed Earth, he stated that for every $100 that we earn here in Jamaica, $50 is taken out and given to the government. He was talking about travesty of justice. It was an unjust move. It is an unjust law, an unjust, unfair action, because people will never be able to survive comfortably that way. There are people who cannot successfully buy, a decent car, a decent home, groceries. They have to buy a lot of tin things, put back half of the things that they may take up. Probably it feels good to them to see the things in the trolley. But when they realize that they now have to go to pay the piper, they have to put back everything, or almost everything, or half of what they're taken up. Or they have to take very cheap and inexpensive things that are not healthy to their bones, to their bodies, because they simply cannot afford the things that are good for their bodies, their mind, and their soul. Prime Minister, you know what to do. I can understand you not wanting to call election because you might not like the outcome, but you know what to do. Raise all public sector workers' salaries in a tremendous sense. Pay people accordingly, promote people. They're people who they're gifted, they're talented, they have the right attitude, attributes, everything for the job, and they're stuck. It's like a stalemate. They're hindered out of envies and jealousies and too many friends and come below. The place come like an incestuous place, the entire place, because everywhere you go is a friend and an auntie, or uncle, or mother, sister, brother, and aunt working in the same space, from politics right down. When you go into the churches, you see the very same thing. If they have 10 children, all 10 children are the pastors, the singers, the actors, the lawyers, the doctors, the Indians, the chiefs. And the rest of people are the pew, where they have to look on. It is not equitable in terms of delegating positions and roles and responsibilities. It is not fair. What you do, you give your auntie, even though your auntie is not qualified, but you still give your auntie. You still give your sister. You still give your wife, your brother, your aunt, which knowing that's a breach. It is unethical. It is not good. And this country is riddled with that. Look at what is happening. In 2 weeks, 427 teachers have resigned, more to come. And you know that was actually brewing. So when you talk about in comparison to 2022, not you, I'm just talking in general, in whichever, when I was listening to Minister Williams, that there has been a 40% reduction. It's an illusion. It's just that the people did not necessarily send in their resignation. And the ones who would have sent in their resignation, some of these are experts in the area of speciality. So you lose, it's almost like you're losing which part of the body you need. Your heart, your brain, your liver, certain stomach intestines that you need. It's a must. It's not like the kidneys that you can survive on what they say, even up to a quarter or one or something of the sort. The others that I mentioned, it's a necessity. And the next you're going for is the blood. Once you lose the blood, you're dead, because that's the overarching, that's the main actor, the main course meal, the most important. Once your blood is good, even if your organs are giving trouble, once the blood flows properly and it is good, it can correct the issues, it can heal itself. But if the blood goes bad, you know that you're in trouble. Similarly, if you lose all the important people and have such a heavy brain drain, your country will not do well. It will affect you, sir. It will affect you. It will affect your kingdom, and kingdom in common K. Biggest kingdom is Jesus Christ. It will affect your organization. It will affect your leadership. It will affect what you're doing. And you guys will go down as the worst ever. And that's a terrible thing. Never ever get a leadership position and people can prove that you have been the worst leader ever. Pay the people properly. Pay the public sector workers properly. Pay the public sector workers properly, and put people on staff. Guys, follow me on TikTok. Subscribe to my YouTube channel.